Hope everyone is doing well. Apologize that I had to dial in instead of being on video, but appreciate everyone's time. For those who don't know, my name is Greg Hambrick. I am the newly elected chair of the program committee. But for those that are with DYCD for many years know I'm not a stranger to the Community Action Board. Held a few positions as a member of this board, excited to chair this committee and hope I can do as well a job as our previous outgoing chair. So I know there's a lot of people on the call, and Anita indicated who's present. I don't know, it may be too much just to do the introductions, right, Anita? I don't have the benefit of seeing who's there. So can you acknowledge who's there again, just so I know?
Oh, from the CAB, it's Jackie Rowe Adams is here. And Mrs. Patel, I believe, is on the line.
Oh, okay. Hi, Jackie. I'm Mrs. Patel. And we have our guest as well, and who from DYCD is there? I'm good. Good to see you.
And our guests are two presenters, and Sherman Oliveira will introduce them. Sherman is the deputy director of the literacy program for DYCD.
Anita, I don't want to go
I'm right.
even though I'm
right behind you.
A lot of folks on the phone, so I'm not sure who everyone is either.
Who everyone is? Okay, so all right, so we can do an introduction. What I'll do is I'll call the people that I see here. My name is Anita Antonetti. I'm the Senior Director for the Neighborhood Advisory Board, Community Action Board Liaison Unit. We'll go, Jackie, introduce yourself. Jackie, can you introduce yourself?
Or Anita, do you want to acknowledge everyone else who you recognize, and then if there's anyone else?
Sure. Okay. So we have Charles Lynn, James Moultrie. Staff, we have Jeff, Lisa, and Mitch and Karen. We have Kim Robinson, Kofi Thomas, Joan DeCamp, Paul Mai, who's also a CAB member, Sherman Oliveira, I said, Tim Law, Ms. Basumati Patel, who's a CAB member as well. And that's all I can recognize right now. And our two presenters, Cindy Andreozzi and Marc Valanote.
Hi, Anita. You have Gideon Dunkley on the line also.
I'm sorry, Gideon. I just see your phone number. And Gideon Dunkley, another CAB member. And Lisa Hayes. I think I mentioned you, Lisa.
And Linda Newton.
Linda Newton Walters. Hello.
Sorry, I thought you heard me before. Sorry.
No, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry that I didn't hear you. So we have quite a group, so this should be very interesting.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you, everyone, for attending and being recognized.
And that was Mike Bobbitt, our Deputy Commissioner for Community Development.
Well, the reputation of this committee precedes it, right? Because I've always heard that this is the committee that has quite the attendance and quite the participation. So it sounds like that's been pretty consistent. So
yes,
great to hear. So I won't hold up the meeting any longer. One caveat for me, Anita, I'm not sure usually how long the program committee meetings take. I do have another meeting to jump in at 7. Okay. But I'll message you as it gets closer, just in case the presentations run long.
It should take just till 7. It's usually about an hour. The presenters will be talking about 10 minutes and then maybe 5 minutes for questions if there's any questions.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure because don't want to rush the presentations because that's the most important part.
No, it's fine. And if you have to jump off, we'll continue.
Sounds perfect. Okay, so then I'm going to turn it over now, and thank you everyone for your introductions. Pleasure to meet everyone. Nice to hear some familiar names and hear some familiar voices there. So great to see everyone. So I'm now going to turn it over to Sherman Oliveira, who is the Deputy Director of Literacy, who will introduce our presenters for today. So Sherman, I will turn it over to you.
I appreciate it, and good evening to everyone present. Thank you for coming today.
Marc.
We have two outstanding organization and literacy programs.
I got to get the truck. That mouse is running all over the place.
Let's get that truck.
Yeah, please mute yourselves when you're not presenting. Thank you.
And you know, we will hear from them now. And let me start wasting no time. We have Cindy Andreozzi, who has been the director of Inwood Community Service Adult Literacy and Educational Program. And that program is located in Inwood, Upper Manhattan, for over the past 20 years. She has career experience as a EFL, that's English as Foreign Language, ESL, and a GED teacher.
Okay.
She also has experience with student service, educational counseling, and manager of other literacy programs. Cindy loves her chosen career, and she surrounds herself with people
Wonderful.
who are committed, passionate about their adult literacy, as well as helping participants reaching their literacy and life goals. Tonight, Cindy will be presenting to you on Inwood's adult literacy program that is supported by CSBG funded in Manhattan, Inwood, Washington Heights neighborhood. Ms. Andreozzi, the floor is yours.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I got cut off, but I'm back, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
I got
Cindy's
cut off.
about to present.
Good.
Cindy
good.
Andreozzi from Inwood is about to present, so let's
Great.
give her her moment.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you, Sherman, for the introduction.
And thank you.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. I thought I'd start first with an overview of all the programs that Inwood Community Services offers, and then move on specifically to our adult literacy program. So ICS began in 1979 as a grassroots effort of a local church group to bring social services into the area. We're located about as far up in Manhattan as one can go, to the height of about 200th Street. And in 1979, there were very few services available to residents in that area. So Inwood Community Services, or ICS, became the first not-for-profit agency established in the community of Inwood. It was headed by Dr. Charlie Corliss at that time, and he is still our director today. And since 1979, we grew from what was a very, very tiny organization at its beginning until now we have 200 or over 225 employees and a budget of 8 million or over 8 million. Our services include, and I'm going to read these, a DMH funded mental health program that services about 1,000 clients a year. After school programs, which we run in 5 of the public schools in the area. An OASAS funded child and family wellness prevention program that offers support services to families and children considered to be critically at risk, either in the schools or in other ways. A substance abuse counseling program, and advocacy staff who work with within the neighborhood in support of residential needs, and in particularly this past year, of course, with COVID. And we are just now creating the Inwood Family Life Center, which will be a federally funded and certified community behavioral health center. And finally, of course, we have our adult literacy program, which has provided classes to Inwood since, continually for about 37 years. And for most of those 37 years, supported primarily through city funding, I should say. We offer ESL classes and EL civics classes, although we have also offered other literacy classes such as computer literacy classes, health literacy classes, depending on funding that we've had in various years. And in fact, quite a few years ago, we did offer with the Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation a health literacy program that provided services to both Washington Heights and Inwood. I know Marc is here tonight. So for the cycle of contracts that we have now, we generally have about 240, 250 students a year. With some contracts, we've had more, other contracts we've had less. One of the things that we have certainly learned to do, as any agency does, is learn to pivot with the amount of funding that is available. So what do I want to tell you about our program? And I think for me, there are two things which stand out. The first is that we are a bunch of passionate educators, I think, in a nutshell. Most of our staff have been with the agency for a fair amount of years, an average of 16 the last time I've counted. But whether our staff has been on staff for 2 years or 20 years, our instructors basically have teaching in their blood, and our counselors and our support workers have service in their souls, essentially. This is what they want to do. They're good at it, and they will find ways to teach not only ESL and EL civics successfully as a skill set, but also to make connections with their students. And that, I think those are the qualities that make a successful program. And for students, they can be the differences between learning and not learning. And I think the second thing that I think it's fair to say about our program is that we have a pretty student-centered approach to literacy. We were among the first to have a student organization created for our program and to bring a language lab on site. The student organization, or SO, provides feedback on what students feel they need, how they feel they're learning, the support services that they feel they want. And our language lab has been many things for our students, but primarily what it has been is a place where we can get creative with students. 1 year, for example, the SO president spearheaded a project where students came in and they wrote a play together. They put it on and then they presented it in the community, and it was in English. Another year, we invited a nurse volunteer to run language focus groups in the lab where students who wanted to work in the home health attendant field could come, or any nursing related field could come and learn the English that they needed to learn in order to work in that field, because we actually have a lot of students who work in that field. We've hosted a GED support group in that lab. We've hosted a citizenship support group, learning group in the lab. And this past year, actually, we worked with Ron Zhang and Sherman and our contract manager, Leslie, to create a remote lab, because of course, all of our services were remote this past year. Where students could come to work with counselors individually and in groups to set goals for themselves and to create action plans to reach these goals. And we did this in response to the fact that a lot of our students had lost jobs during COVID. Our population was very, very much affected by that. And so we felt that it was just really timely to get that work active and before a student And we were able to actually get every single student in the program into the lab to do that, to go through the series of workshops that it took to complete that. And believe me, that took a massive, massive, but we did it. So the work that we did in that remote lab stems from work we have been doing for decades now with students. And this has really been a focus for our program, which is not only to bring the specific skill set of teaching English and civics before our students, but also to have them navigate in pursuing their dreams, really the reasons that they came to this country. So to help them take the practical steps, to know how to take the practical steps to reach their dreams and to turn their dreams into reality. So that, I think that work has helped students, sometimes in big ways, sometimes in small. One example that I'm going to give you is we had a new student last year to us. His name was Vital. And Vital has his master's in microbiology from Burkina Faso, but he'd actually been working as a busboy in French restaurants in New York City since he got here. Then when COVID hit, he lost his job. And you would think that a microbiologist during a pandemic would actually be able to find another job quite easily, almost anywhere. But he had a very, very difficult time finding another job. And so he worked with our counselors. He actually worked with two of our counselors and looking, not only finding places that he could apply, redoing his resume. And finally, he did find another job as a contact tracer, making $22 an hour, which was more than he had been making, and was more than he had been doing in terms of his field before COVID. Now that contract is coming to an end, but he is still in our program. He's come back this year, and we are currently working with him to try to find other positions that might be available to him. We're looking primarily for work in a lab or possibly as a TPD instructor in the Department of Education. Anybody knows of anything, let us know. And so another example that I wanted to give you, and one of the most meaningful for me, was another student we had, Rosa, who had been away from a program for many years, but Roberto Cruz is one of our counselors in our program. He met her recently on the street, just walking on the street, after she'd been gone for our program for about 10 years. And she told him that the goal-setting skills that he had taught her in our classes had really helped her to reach three of the biggest goals in her life, which were to get her driver's license, to get a job that she liked, which was working in a bank, and also to buy a condo. And one of the things that Roberto teaches, and all of our counselors teach in our classes to our students, is that as important as our big dreams are, the little space that we create in our day and our weeks to take the practical steps to reach those dreams are as important. And Roberto gives students a template on how to do that. And Rosa credited that skill that she learned in the classes with her being able to reach those goals, which were important for her. So that, for me, hearing that story really touched me, and it reminded me that what we do is important, but more than that, how we do it is important. So I think that I do want to say something about the last year and a half, which has really been tough for everyone. So until March of 2020, of course, all of our classes were presented in person at IS 52, which happens to be across the street from our offices. Then everything, including our classes, came to an abrupt end And we were as shocked and stunned that second week in March as everyone was. And then 2 weeks later, we had a fully functioning remote program going online for our students. Those 2 weeks before it happened were hell, mind you. Learning, meeting every day on Zoom, learning how to navigate remotely, creating curriculum, creating strategies, making plans, but we did it. And thankfully, we had an instructor on staff who had had previous experience running remote classes. He brought us up to speed technologically, and then in turn, we brought our student population up to speed. Our specific population tend not to be technologically rich. They do have cell phones generally, but they, for the most part, they do not have laptops or computers. And so it was a special task that we had before us to try to create classes that students could actually do on their cell phones, which is hard. And because we do give a lot of interactive lessons. We have homework. Their students are expected to produce work, to receive work, to produce it, and to send it back to us. So there was, we had a lot of work to do during that. But I'm thankful that I survived that period. But I'm also in awe of what I saw. I mean, I saw, and I know that this is true of our program, but it's also true of many other programs, what I was seeing at the time of how people stepped up to continue their services. And I think it really is clearly a testament to how the humans can do that, difficult challenges. So I did want to mention, like, we had one instructor who, he was an excellent teacher, but he was a little old school. And when we started to go remote, I was a little worried about how he was going to be able to carry off a remote class. Well, not only did he learn the technology quickly, but he ended up calling every student, not once, but in most cases twice, before and after every class. The first time to make sure that they had what they needed technologically and they understood what they needed to do. And the second time to make sure that they had been able to navigate successfully the technology, they could hear, they understood. He would answer their questions on the phone, if anything about either the technology or the content, the subject matter at hand. And when I asked him, how do you have the energy to do this? This is like 30 calls a day that you're making, because he was doing this before and after every class, basically for the entire end of the term. And his response to me was, well, I'm in lockdown. What else am I going to do? I mean, I might as well do this. And the students are so thankful, and that makes me happy. And, I say this because this is what I saw. This is what I saw everywhere. And not all of our instructors did this, of course, but everybody stepped up. Our staff stepped up. Everybody did what they did that they could do in their own way, whether it was perhaps taking professional developmental courses so that they could improve their skills to teach remotely, whether it was calling students to make sure that the students had what they needed to continue. And I do want to say, I was really appreciative to DYCD during this period, because they did offer us some very nice classes. In fact, Sherman, I remember some workshops that Sherman did. It was really particularly helpful for us. And not only that, but there was some compensation that they were able to provide our instructors as well, and that was also very helpful. I think the other thing I want to say about that period is that we did lose students, of course, when we went remote. We had students who did not have internet capabilities, or they were in some ways, for some reasons, just overburdened by what they were going through at the time. Students who were getting sick with COVID, of course. But the students that persisted were really very impressive. I don't think that I particularly would want to go through a class on a cell phone that required work of me in terms of receiving and giving back work. But our students did. And not only did we, what we saw was not only were our students appearing in our classes, but all of a sudden entire families were appearing in our classes because perhaps, our student couldn't successfully navigate or didn't understand the technology very well. So, but maybe their sons and daughters and grandchildren did. So the entire family would show up to a class so that they could help their family member continue with the class. And that was very, very touching to see. We also saw students that blossomed because it was a very non-traditional format that we were offering. And we had one student who was very, very shy, who would not speak up to save her life. She would not answer a question in a classroom, but sitting in her own living room, surrounded by her own family, she started to talk like you wouldn't believe. And she came out of her shell. We had another student whose daughter got involved because, again, her mother could not navigate the technology, and she got so interested, she actually started teaching her mom some more English. And so her mom progressed just at a much faster rate than she had been doing. So this is all to say that, this has been a period which has been difficult, not only for us, but for everybody, I think. But it hasn't been all bad, and that there have been some really successes, unexpected successes, we're really grateful to have seen them. So now, we're going into our second program year with this. This year, we are starting to introduce slowly some live programming, in-person classes back into our program. We are not back into IS 52 yet. The principal has offered her support. She's glad to have us back, but the custodians are a little bit, I think understandably, worried about how they can maintain the cleaning protocols that they have to maintain and have us in the building, because we're usually there until about 9:30 at night. So we're working with the school, trying to make that happen. And meanwhile, we are offering some what we call hybrid classes, which are going to be a mix of in-person classes and remote classes within our own building itself, with a number of our classes still will be completely remote. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say. We all have our COVID stories, and that's ours.
It's crazy.
For listening.
It's really great how you've been able to do that. Greg, I'm going to suggest we hold the questions and let Mr. Valanote do his presentation, and we can hold it to the end. So that way, if anybody has to go, it'll be during the question and answer period.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Greg, if I can just, for a second, I joined the meeting. I just wanted to congratulate you on your new role and wish you great success.
Much appreciated, Itchy. Always good to hear from you, and hope all is well.
Yes, sir. Thank God. Everybody have a great evening. I have to go to another meeting. I just wanted to cut in for a minute and congratulate Greg and wish him the very best, and talk to you guys soon.
Okay. That was the chairperson, Isaac Heschel, for the cab, who was congratulating Greg. Okay, Sherman, you can introduce Mr. Valanote.
Thank you so much. That was a good presentation, and we have another respectable presentation coming up now. We have Marc Valanote. He is the managing immigrant attorney at Northern Manhattan Improvement Council. The acronym is NMIC. Marc obtained his JD from New York Law School in 2012. Marc joined NMIC in January 2016 and currently oversees the entire immigration unit, which serves a high volume of low-income immigrant New Yorkers. Marc is committed to serving most vulnerable members of the New York City community. He views the practice of law as a powerful means of helping our immigrant neighbors overcome their challenges in order to lead safe and prosperous lives. Tonight, he will be presenting to you the NDA Immigrant Services Program that is supported by the CSBG-funded NDA initiative in Manhattan, NDA 2. He will tell us specifically what community that is when he gets his opportunity to present. Welcome, Mr. Valanote.
Thank you, sir, and thank you all for having me. So before we get into some of the details of our immigration unit at NMIC, I just want to give an overview for everyone's benefit. Much like Cindy mentioning the history of Inwood Community Services, NMIC also began in 1979. And it started as a nonprofit focused on housing, and it's expanded a lot in the time of its inception to, before I got hired by them. So NMIC is a multi-service agency. The term that's been recently outdated is settlement house. So we provide legal services, but also we provide other services meant to fulfill our mission, which is, and I'm going to read it because I often botch it, is to serve as a catalyst for positive change in the lives of the people in our community on their paths to securing prosperous futures. So an example I like to give is, and this does predate me, but we still see examples like this. A woman came to our legal department seeking help because she was going to be evicted. So she went to our housing department, and the attorney who screened her, during the course of seeing, what her relief was, what any defenses could be, she stumbled upon the information that the client disclosed that she was suffering from domestic violence from her partner who she resided with. And from there, she was referred to our domestic violence project, which is run by Sarah Banda, who's been with NMIC for some time. That provides counseling and advocacy specifically for victims of partner-on-partner violence. And then one of the social workers who was doing that counseling noticed, because the client had disclosed that she didn't have any immigration status, she was undocumented, and she really didn't know what her options were. But as we all know, not having any legal status can leave you at a disadvantage, even if you're not facing eviction or any of the other issues she was facing. So she was then referred to our immigration department, and the head attorney then discovered that she would qualify for what is called a U visa, which is for victims of certain crimes who are undocumented, but who choose to cooperate with the law enforcement. They're able to come forward and they reasonably cooperate. So she wound up being able to keep her apartment. She wound up getting counseling for her domestic violence and being able to separate herself from that situation. Excuse me. And after some waiting, she was able to get her green card from USCIS. So we, as opposed to someone just coming to us for one service for their green card to prevent an eviction, there are other things that we wind up making referrals to, regardless of where the person starts. So other examples besides eviction defense and domestic violence counseling to in-house services include education and career services, which provide ESL. They provide GED or now high school equivalency classes. We also have a weatherization department. We also have mental health counseling that's not necessarily tied to domestic violence survivors. And more recently, since the pandemic, we've been able to open a bi-weekly food pantry where existing clients or people who came to us anew could be referred and sort of organized into a list. Of course, we had to, the way it was set up, that people had to show up at certain appointments for safety reasons, but it's been a big success, and I believe it has actually expanded because it was sort of an emergency thing that we were able to get started. I don't really have a part in this, but we were able to get started. Our executive director was able to spearhead that, and now it's continuing to the president, hopefully. Will just last and just become another service we offer. So on the immigration end, much of what we do would be considered straightforward cases. Say someone who already has a permanent resident card, a green card, and wants to naturalize, or someone who's a permanent resident or a citizen, but they want to petition for a family member who's overseas, or even in some instances are here in the United States. We also do a wide variety of complex cases. I mentioned U visa cases for victims of crimes, but these are cases, I would generally describe them as people who are already in the United States, but they don't have status. So we do focus on relief for clients who are survivors of domestic violence, because it sort of dovetails with other services in our client base. So there are U visas, there's what's called Violence Against Women Act cases for someone who may have married a man or a woman, even though it's the name of the law, who may have married a citizen, but instead of that citizen filing for them, the relation ended due to partner-on-partner abuse. And the law allows a path for them to get status that way. We also have a limited, number of cases involving people in removal proceedings, although not too many because we're a small unit, and other forms of complex relief. But even in the more straightforward cases, a client comes to us, they've been here for 30 or 40 years as a permanent resident. They come, they say, well, I want to finally naturalize. They never got around to it. They may have been working and unable to really take an English class. There's a big benefit for them coming to a legal nonprofit, or a nonprofit that has legal services, because whereas they may go, someone without access to this as a resource, access to NMIC or other similar agencies, they might go to someone who just does their taxes, who says, yeah, I'll fill out your naturalization papers or whatever. But they don't ask them the right questions. They don't ask them if they've ever been arrested before. And that can put people in danger. So a big part of our role as attorneys and as paralegals at NMIC is to protect people, because until you're a citizen, you can get deported or other issues can come up. So it makes a big difference to be able to tell someone, well, we need to figure out what, even if it was 30 years ago, and it wasn't even it was an arrest that was not at the time, looking back, warranted, or, unfair prosecution or whatever, that's something you need to deal with. And even if it means telling them to wait to file, or maybe to not file at all because it could put them at risk, there is value in that. So it's not just the applications that we're filing for people, although that is our bread and butter. Those are our deliverables under NDA and several other contracts. That's the type of atmosphere we foster, about people being open with us so we can, help preserve their status and also acquire new benefits for them. So in terms of, the adaptations we've had to make due to COVID, as Cindy would attest to, it was a big adjustment. Even if services are possible over the phone or over video, it's difficult to transition to that if you're used to serving people in person. So where all of our services were in person, we used to have a general intake day, for instance, where we would serve the first 50 new clients to come to our door. Something like that has not been, wasn't possible, and for the time being still doesn't seem like a good idea. So we're not going to do that for now. But same thing with people, just something as simple as coming in for a consultation, signing a form, delivering a document. All these things were not, were imprudent and obviously reasonably not allowed under city guidelines. So we took advantage of USCIS, that's US Citizenship and Immigration Services, their flexibility during COVID. Instead of coming in to sign, maybe the person or a family member can print out, sign, and take a neat picture of their signature page on whatever application, and then we can use that. And people were pretty resourceful. Same thing with documents. You need a copy of your green card to file for naturalization. You need a copy of other biographical documents. They can take a neat picture of it. We make sure it's cropped. Very basic little things that didn't come naturally, but we sort of learned as we went and developed a system for this. Obviously, in any community, as Cindy mentioned, served by a nonprofit in the city, there are going to be challenges with technology. Not everyone can easily print something. People who are out of work, spending a few bucks down at the Kinko's or whatever may not be possible at that time. So we also, since last summer, adapted to a hybrid model where we would have people who were pre-screened for COVID symptoms and all that, would get appointments to come in at specific times, and they would meet with someone in a sealed off cubicle at our premises in Washington Heights, and they would sign or deliver whatever documents there. That enabled us to reach, I would say, significantly more people who don't have access to that. Some of our clients who have been in the community for decades and decades may not be so tech savvy. And they may not have a relative who's here in the United States to assist with this kind of stuff. So that's really benefited. And I think a testament to how we've been able to do this, to have people sign remotely, to have people come in safely, sign things, and then they can get followed up with on the phone, just to make sure everyone's safe. We were able to, and we have been able to, and continue to meet all of our deliverables across the board, given those difficulties. And that's rewarding to see your team, all cooperate, all sort of get on board with, yes, it was a bigger challenge, and it was a real pain, and sometimes still can be a bit of a challenge if someone misses their appointment and they gotta wait, or we have to wait another week to schedule them so we can safely have them sign. But I think it's been a big success. In terms of getting new clients, that's a challenge. People can't walk into our office anymore without an appointment because it's not safe to do so. We have an immigration hotline where people can call. There's a specific time for it on Monday mornings, and then they will get put into our intake system, and someone will reach out and do a full screening and start the process. But in place of our general intake days, which, as I mentioned, we would serve the first 30 people to our door, maybe 40 or 50. we started in the fall Zoom intake days, where through social media, through flyers that are just around the office outside, we advertise basically a link where you just basically get to see what appointments are available for this day, and people sign up for it and they log in. Right now it's the second Friday of the month, but we change it a bit. So, you know, that morning everyone's ready. Everything's been pretty successful with it. People have been showing up, which is always good. They've been ready with whatever documents they need. And so instead of screening 30 people in person, we're getting about that many remotely, and it's a face-to-face interaction with the paralegal or the attorney if they're being advised that day. So that's been a big deal, and for the time being, it's good. Obviously, we'd like things to open up again. I do like to go into the office most of the time, except I have a cold this week, so I'm not going in for obvious precautionary reasons. But in the meantime, or if things have to get locked down again, I mean, I think we all learn that you don't really know what to expect in life after COVID hit. We do have a functional model that's enabled us to still reach clients, to let them know that we're still working on their case, to answer their questions, and to continue to serve their immigration needs, along with the other services we provide, legal and otherwise. Finally, you know, during COVID, as Cindy mentioned, and it was the same with our clients, the same with clients of any nonprofit agency serving the community in New York City, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people still don't have the same hours of employment as they may have had before COVID, and even then they were not earning very much. So my team has really attuned itself to making sure that clients have access to the most resources as possible. So for example, there's the Excluded Workers Fund issued by New York State to benefit, this is most recently, to benefit undocumented people or people who were in between status, who did not qualify for unemployment benefits under state law, did not qualify for federal COVID relief that basically everyone got a few times last year and this year. So our staff, which I've been lucky to have very little turnover in the last few years, they know aside from getting demographic data, we know who's undocumented who comes to us, who could benefit for this, who lost employment due to COVID, and who qualified. And so we were able to refer them. We have an Excluded Worker Fund liaison who is working for NMIC right now. And I worked with her a bit to help a client get some documents for this. And we're starting to see clients get approved rather for these funds. And without getting into specifics, it can be a significant amount of money that they're receiving, which is a huge deal. I was pretty shocked. And this is going to enable them to pay rent, to maybe pay some back bills, and to stabilize them, which is what we want to do, because you know it's difficult to move forward if you're always if they're struggling and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's a really big deal. But even before the Excluded Workers Fund was passed by the state, there was a city funded COVID relief that we would refer our clients to get some sort of funds in the absence, again, of normal federal funding or unemployment insurance. There are certain rent programs that come up where our larger part of our legal department is housing. So they're connected to things like the Gershner Fund and some other things that can stabilize people, pay for a month's worth of utilities. And even directly with immigration, we file a lot of DACA applications. Those are for people who were brought to the United States at a young age. This was a program started by President Obama where they can get protection from deportation and the work authorization cards. We hope that Congress would pass something to get them full legal status. But for the time being, a lot of DACA recipients have been getting it for about 10 years now. And there's an application fee though, and it's $495. So we have a relationship with the Hispanic Federation, which is an advocacy organization that supports a lot of our work and the work of a lot of other agencies. And we were able to refer dozens of clients, I would say, I don't have the exact numbers, to get, if they qualified, if their income was under a certain level, to get the check for that. So instead of spending $500 of their own money, we were able to have one of our paralegals who's helping with the application apply for it, and then send out the application with the Hispanic Federation's funds. So this is all to say that I think we've been very successful in both providing clients assistance in the same way, and also, you know, taking care to see what else can be done to help them, whether it's referring someone who's struggling with housing issues, who's struggling with a domestic violence situation, or to try to help stabilize them economically while they come to us. So it's been very rewarding working with my team and with the whole organization over the last year. And I hope that we can continue to move forward and expand our services.
Excellent.
Good information.
Great information, and we appreciate the presentation, both presentations, valuable information. And we appreciate the dialogue in terms of how you both have been able to administer services respectively during such challenging, difficult times as it relates to the pandemic. So appreciate it from you both. I'd like to open up for any questions. I know we have a lot of people on the call, a lot of people that called in and some that are on video. But if you do have a question, now's an opportunity to ask.
Hi, this is Jackie.
Hi, Jack. Go ahead, Jack.
Yes, I don't think I heard where you're located.
Oh, I might have neglected that. We're at 45 Wadsworth Avenue, off of 175th Street in Washington Heights. So a little south of ICS, but in the same area.
Oh, okay. So is that 7? I know you said some days, but because of the pandemic, you said you're not open every day, or?
Well, no, we have sort of a hybrid model. So our services are done remotely. We don't really meet with clients or members of the public inside, except for limited appointments, like if they need to drop something off, a document, or sign something, or the food pantry we do is sort of at our front door where people have appointments for that. And some employees like myself do go in most of the time, but it's still, I would say, overwhelming majority remote work. So, but the locations at 45 Wadsworth, I hope that we can be at full capacity at some point in the future again.
Oh, thank you. I just want to say hi to my friend Faye. Faye, I see her on the call.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie.
Okay, thank you for the information. It's so important.
We'll be in touch. I also have a question, if I may.
There was no better feeling than making it. Go ahead, Faye.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to say thank you, Anita, and all the organizers for making this presentation, possible. And of course, presenter Mr. Valinoti. My question is, what would be like the protocol to follow for referral? Let's say with organization, a non-for-profit organization wanted to refer clients, and or also other organization may wanted to work with you. What would be the protocol? What would be the process? How we do that? Thank you.
Then for both of us, I would let. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had the same question.
I think that it's a confusion. Did you hear my question? This is Faithful.
We heard your question, but who were you talking to? Which presenter? Immigration or adult literacy?
No, immigration. I say his name, Mr.
Okay.
Valinoti. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so we have a few ways people can get in touch. We have a hotline, which I'll share. I can share it in this chat right now, actually. We also have advertised on our social media, like NMIC, NMIC.org has a Facebook group that they'll put up things like our remote intake day. So let me share the hotline right here so everyone can see it.
The leading Democratic nominee, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, Republican nominee, Guardian Angels founder Curtis Lewa.
Today from 9 to 12, anyone can call the hotline and they'll get maybe not the same day, but they will get some of their information taken down and someone will reach out to do a screening appointment. So I don't have the date yet, but because we're about to set up our November general intake day on Zoom, where it's going to be on a Friday, and we see about 25 people, I would say, and they sign up for it online. I will of course provide it, on the email chain, but NMIC, I could probably put it. I don't go on Facebook much, but we have a Facebook, we have a Twitter, and all sorts of social media stuff that it would be up on. Here it is. I'm gonna put that one.
Thank you.
Also streaming on the NBC New York app, NBCLX, Telemundo 47 digital.
Additionally, really quickly, it's not, well, we also happen to be a member of NMIC, where people throughout New York City, as long as they're in the 5 boroughs, can call 311 and get an appointment. They just say they need help with immigration. You dial 311, you need help with immigration, and you can ask for NMIC specifically, because we're not the only agency who does this program, and they will get set up with an appointment.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Sean.
Yes, I wanted to know, based on your experience that you've had over the last year and a half in the way service is provided technologically, is there something that you've learned that you will be implementing or keep moving forward? When we come back to the new norm, is there something, I know it has been challenging. I know every day working with the providers, not having participants in front of you that you can see, talk to, and get that additional experience of helping them face to face. But is there anything that you've learned, maybe technologically wise, or the way, like someone says, hybrid programs, someone said, I believe setting up more ways of communicating through technological means, that you plan to keep moving forward because you've learned something that's very successful and you want to keep it?
Sherman, is that directed to both of us, or?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, I think that for us, anyway, we have really learned to appreciate some of the advantages that technology has brought into the program that I think that, we will hold on to. Just something as simple as all of our classes now are connected to WhatsApp groups, and we never really communicated. We communicated by email, we communicated in other ways, but we never used WhatsApp. But we adopted it very quickly because most of our students did have WhatsApp accounts. So, that's something that has been invaluable. Also, just the general format. There are students who really thrived under this format. Students who were missing classes all the time because of childcare problems, work problems, that were very, very consistent under the remote format because, first of all, their children were right there. While they were taking the classes, they didn't have those kinds of problems. Also, we have students whose variable work schedules would preclude them from coming to class all the time. But they were logging in, with masks on from their jobs. So, I think one of the things that we found is that there really is a place for remote instruction. It's not something that we would want to do 100% of the time. Certainly, there are lots of it's hard. It's much harder to do remote instruction than it is, but I think it's something that we will look into continuing if we can, and in some small way, in some way.
Great.
And on our end, I mean, yeah, the flexibility that we discovered of being able to have people sign things remotely, and to be able to just use a scan of the signature or them be able to provide us documents, that is good. And a lot of our clients may be elderly, have mobility issues. So instead of having them come back to the office, facilitating something like that could save everyone time. Also, in terms of just, immigration for the time being, use in a lot of other fields of law, still, for better or worse, use paper filings for a lot of things. So it's not like most of the forms we file cannot be filed online for our clients. They need to be printed and mailed in. And while we obviously would have there has to be paper printed out at some point, which takes up space, by the way. We've been utilizing having an electronic filing system, whether it's a draft of an application or something, or an affidavit to work on, that can be worked on if you have to be home, or just a full, since the pandemic, whenever I mail something out, it gets scanned now. So there's a backup copy of it safely on our shared drive in Outlook. And so that's something that I know a lot of law offices weren't necessarily doing, including ours. We would have obviously paper copies of files as required, but that's something that's going to be a benefit to us, because as you have files from years and years ago, you may have them archived somewhere. You can't keep them all on site, but you can just look them up now. So that is something that we came out of this with, realizing was the way to go.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I think I'd like to say thank you to our, did I hear somebody?
Power crisis management.
Yes, I'm gonna have to go off the line, and I'm listening to the debate. It's very good.
Okay, all right.
I'll talk to you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jackie.
Okay. Do we have any voting items?
Yeah, the adjournment. Do you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn right now.
Okay.
Catch the debate. Catch the debate. Okay.
Okay.
Jackie, we'll be in touch.
Okay, I need another cab member to second that motion.
I second, Faye.
No, you can't say a cab member. I
Oh,
need
the
a
cab
cab.
member, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I'll second that, Victoria Camerata Curtis.
Thank you, Victoria.
Oh, they having a fight. Curtis and Eric having a fight. Bye.
Okay, okay. All right. Thank you, Jackie. Bye-bye. Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for attending. And this was a great presentation. Thank you to our presenters. And thank you, Sherman, for your introductions.
Great to see everyone. Great presentations. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you for a great presentation.